All right, welcome to part 28 of my overview of the Bible story. We have reached the end of the exile. It's been 70 long years of Judah's exile in Babylon. Remember, King Nebuchadnezzar took them all away as captives. 70 years. Remember, that's what God had told Jeremiah. The captivity, the exile is going to last for 70 years, and then I'm going to bring my people back. So now we're at the end of that period of 70 years. Now, in the last episode, we ended with a verse from Psalm 27, which is my favorite psalm. Well, in this episode, I want to start also with a verse from Psalm 27, which is a psalm of David. Okay, look at this. I would have lost heart unless I had believed that I would see the goodness of Yahweh in the land of the living. What a great verse for exile. You know, when you're in exile, it's just so easy to lose heart. You're cut off from your people, your land, everything you've known before, and you're living as a foreigner, almost like a prisoner out in a different country. So look at that. I would have lost heart, but I didn't lose heart. Why? Because I believed that I would see the goodness of Yahweh in the land of the living. That is the hope to keep someone alive in exile. You know, guys, living in exile is really hard. It's hard. Imagine just being like a boy, right? Taken from Jerusalem. You know, when you were a kid, you saw the temple and everything, and suddenly this foreign king comes and takes you and your family, maybe kills a lot of your family. I don't know. Takes you and maybe some of your friends, and you end up way, like, hundreds of kilometers away in a different country with a different language. Everything's different food, different weather, probably. Everything's different. And now you've lived 70 years in a foreign country. Now you're an old man. Let's say you're 80 years old. But you remember back when you were a boy living in Jerusalem, you know? What would that feel like? Or imagine you were born in Babylon, because that's now we're left with most of these people now they've never even been to Jerusalem. Only the oldest people, only the very old people, right? 70 years. So you'd have to be, like, to remember Jerusalem now, you'd have to be probably about 75 or 80 years old. Okay, so only the very oldest people now even remember what it was like. So it's much more likely that people now are born in Babylon and they don't even know anything about Israel. What's it like there? What does it look like? They've never been there. So wouldn't that be crazy? Is it their fault that all this happened? Imagine if you're just a baby born in Babylon. Was it your fault that God kicked you out of the land and now you're born over in a different country? No, it's not your fault. So, what would it feel like? You're just kind of a foreigner. You know that this isn't really the home of your people. Maybe your friends, neighbor, kids or whatever, maybe they bully you. Maybe they make fun of you. Hey there, you Jewish boy. What are you doing out here? You're not from here. You're not one of us Babylonian people. Yeah, I don't know. It would be a very interesting experience to be in that situation. But now they're going back. The 70 years of exile is done. But I want to ask you a question. What hope is powerful enough to hold someone together in exile? What is the hope that can really get you through the hard time in exile? Well, I love this verse, you know. I would have lost heart unless I had believed that I would see the goodness of Yahweh. That is the hope. Okay, and you know what we're going to find out later in the story is that right now, you and me, we are also, in a way, in exile. We're living in exile. So right now, I'm living in Canada. It's the year 2025. And honestly, I feel like I'm in exile. How about you? Do you feel like you're in exile? So we're going to kind of take a look at that more later on in the story, how we're also kind of in exile. And so for me, this is my hope. Okay? To see with my eyes Yahweh in the land of the living. It kind of feels like I'm living in the land of death out here these days, guys. I don't know. How do you feel? Are you feeling full of life, or do you need hope? This is my hope, guys. Okay, so the hope of this story is not enlightenment. Okay? So far, this is already part 28 of this series. Okay, the hope of this story is not to get enlightenment. It's not to get anything. It's not to get wealth, right? Oh, if I can just get more money, then that's my hope, is money or strength or independence. No, it's not getting women. It's not getting anything. It's seeing Yahweh. That is the hope of the story. Okay, the hope of this whole story. I hope you know this by now. You should know this. I'm just reminding you, okay? The hope of this story is to see Yahweh with our own eyes. Where? In Zion. That is the hope of this story. I want to read you one more verse from Psalm 27. It says, when you said, seek my face, my heart said to you, your face, Yahweh, I will seek. Okay, so this is David writing, and Yahweh said, seek my face. Wow. My heart said to you, your face, Yahweh, I will seek. Okay, God wants us to want him, to be with him face to face. And that means he has a face. Okay, what is a face? Do you know what a face is? I know what a face is. A face has two eyes, 2 ears, a nose, a mouth. You know, that's a face. Okay, so does Yahweh have a face? Yeah, he does. Okay, so far we've seen so many hints that Yahweh is going to become a man. Or maybe he is a man, and somehow it's a bit mysterious so far in the story. We don't really know how to imagine this, so we just kind of have to meditate on these kind of verses, but our hope is to be with him in the future face to face. That's what's going to take us through this period of exile that we're living in, okay? Now, I want to ask you this question. After the exile, what will the Israelites need to do? Like, now the 70 years is coming to an end, right? God's going to take them back to their land, but what are they going to need to do there? How should they live? Should they try to get another king and get some military victories, and try to get a strong country like they had under David and Solomon? Or what are they supposed to do? Their temple's destroyed? Are they supposed to get they're supposed to build another temple? Are they supposed to just live there? What are they supposed to do? Well, let me ask you another question. Whose story is this? Is this Israel's story? Think about the story so far. Is this Israel's story? Or is it Yahweh's story? It's Yahweh's story, right? Yahweh's the one who's writing this story. So, probably the best thing for them to do is just to wait for Yahweh and remember the past and all the mistakes they made, and not make those mistakes again, right? What was their big mistake? Their big mistake was not keeping the word of Yahweh, just keeping it close to them. They're always forgetting about it, right? Throwing God's words behind them. That was the big mistake that they made so far in the story. So probably what they should do when they go back is get the words of Yahweh and just cling to them tight and not forget Yahweh, but to keep his covenant, right? And live carefully, teach their children, what happened, teach the story, right? Keep the story alive. That's probably what they should be doing, right? That's my idea anyway. What do you think? So look at this verse in the book of Zechariah. It says, "Not by might nor by power, but by my spirit, says Yahweh Almighty." Okay, so when they go back from exile, there's no point in trying to get military strength, a king, and win victories. That's not going to be the case. Not by might nor by power, but by my spirit. Remember, that's what they need. They're like a bunch of dead bones. Remember Ezekiel? A couple of episodes ago, we saw that God gave Ezekiel this vision of a valley of dry bones. And God said, "Son of man, these dry bones are the people of Israel. They're just dead. The dead people. And they need to be resurrected." And what does Yahweh say? He said, "I'm going to bring these bones together and put flesh and skin and all this stuff, and I'm going to put my spirit into them and give them life." Okay, so that's what dead people need. Dead people, or a dead nation, needs the spirit of Yahweh to give them life. That's it. That's the only solution. Okay, there's a verse in Psalm 104 that I really love. It says this, "When you send your spirit, they are created, and you renew the face of the ground." Okay, so for something to be alive, it needs the spirit of Yahweh. And even the ground, even like a desert, can come to life with springs of water and nice streams and rivers and trees and flowers, and so many prophecies also about that happening too in the Psalms and in Isaiah. For example, Isaiah chapter 35, the desert will suddenly come to life and bloom and flowers and water, and it's just like, and why does all that happen? It's the Spirit of God. Remember, at the very beginning of the Bible, the whole earth was formless and void, but it said the Spirit of God was hovering over the surface of the earth, and it's kind of an interesting thing. And then suddenly there's life, God creates this and that and all these things. Okay, so just remember, this is extremely important. Without the Spirit, there's no life. With the Spirit, a people can be born again. A person or a whole group of people, a country, even the ground, a desert or anything can come to life with the Spirit of Yahweh. Okay, so really this is Yahweh's story, and he will write the next chapter. The people just need to wait for him, to trust him, to follow him, obey him exactly, and not turn their hearts always a different way, right? So I just want to read you a great passage in Isaiah chapter 43. One of my favorite, some of my favorite words in the whole Bible. Okay, look at this. "But now this is what Yahweh says. He who created you, Jacob, he who formed you, Israel, do not fear, for I have redeemed you. I have summoned you by name. You are mine." Wow, they're God's people. They don't need to worry about anything. When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. And when you pass through the rivers, they will not sweep over you. When you walk through the fire, you will not be burned. The flames will not set you ablaze. For I am the Lord your God, the Holy One of Israel, your Savior. I will give Egypt for your ransom, Cush and Seba in your stead. Since you are precious and honored in my sight, and because I love you, I will give people in exchange for you, nations in exchange for your life. Wow. Do not be afraid, for I am with you. I will bring your children from the east and gather you from the west. I will say to the north, give them up, and to the south, do not hold them back. Bring my sons from afar, and my daughters from the ends of the earth. Everyone who is called by my name, whom I created for my glory, whom I formed and made. Man, isn't that just beautiful words? God is saying, you know what? I am going to bring my people back. I am going to do this. Okay, the people didn't need to figure out how to end their own exile. Oh, we're in exile. How can we get back to our land? It was impossible, guys. They had to wait the end of the 70 years, and then God himself, he's going to do it. All right? This is God's story. We don't need to take this story into our own hands. Okay? So when God gives a decree, nothing can stop it. So we're going to see right now God giving a decree to end the exile. Because you might be asking, well, how is this going to end? Are the people going to kind of escape from their captivity and go back? Or what's going to happen now to end this 70 years? Well, right now, let's take a look at this. Ezra chapter 1 in the Bible, okay? In the first year of Cyrus, king of Persia, okay, Nebuchadnezzar is now dead. Okay, now the Persian Empire, the strong ones in the world, okay? In the first year of Cyrus, king of Persia, in order to fulfill Yahweh's word spoken by Jeremiah, Yahweh moved the heart of Cyrus, king of Persia, to make a proclamation throughout his realm and also to put it in writing. This is what Cyrus, king of Persia, says. Whoa! What's he going to say? Look at this. Yahweh moved the heart of King Cyrus. So, this God, Yahweh, can do whatever he wants. The hearts of kings are in his hand. He can just change the people's hearts. He can just move a king's heart to do something, whatever he wants. Okay, so Yahweh's in control of the world. He can move heart if he wants to, and that's what seems to be what's happening here, right? Yahweh moved the heart of King Cyrus of Persia to make a proclamation. What proclamation is that going to be? Well, this is it right here. The Lord, the God of heaven, has given me all the kingdoms of the earth, and he has appointed me to build a temple for him at Jerusalem in Judah. Whoa! Cyrus is saying this. The Lord, the God of heaven, has given me all the kingdoms of the earth. He has appointed me to build for him at Jerusalem a temple. Wow! Okay, the people don't need to figure out how are we going to build this temple and all. It's King Cyrus who God has moved his heart to go and do this. Interesting. Okay, so any of his people among you may go up to Jerusalem and Judah and to build the temple of the Lord, the God of Israel, the God who is in Jerusalem, and may their God be with them. These people aren't slaves in Persia anymore. Cyrus is saying, anybody who wants to go and build the temple, go back to Jerusalem, do it. It's yours. And not only that, look at this. And in any locality where survivors may now be living, the people are to provide them with silver and gold, with goods and livestock, and with free will offerings for the temple of God in Jerusalem. Wow. Okay, so not only are the people free to go back, but now all the local people, all their neighbors and everything, they have to give them gifts to take back to Jerusalem, to provide for them silver, gold, goods, livestock, Wow, offerings for the temple of God in Jerusalem. This is incredible. Man, isn't this incredible, guys? Wow, I can't believe that. Then the family heads of Judah and Benjamin and the priests and Levites, everyone whose heart God had moved, prepared to go up and build the house of the Lord in Jerusalem. And their neighbors assisted them with articles of silver and gold, with goods and livestock, and with valuable gifts in addition to all the freewill offerings. Okay, so these Persian people were just super generous to the Jews. They just gave them silver, gold, animals, freewill offerings, valuable gifts. There you go. Right? That's why the Jews, you may have noticed this in the news, Jews love Persian people, and a lot of Persian people love the Jews because this history goes back to, 500 years BC. Okay, so where are we now in the story? We're, 500 and change around there. The temple was destroyed in 586. Right now that wasn't the start of the exile. The exile was before that. So we're probably around year 530 BC, somewhere around there now. Okay, so the Persian people are just blessing the Israelites, the Jews, with all this stuff to go back, and they're free to go back. Wow. Moreover, King Cyrus brought out the articles belonging to the temple of the Lord, which Nebuchadnezzar had carried away from Jerusalem and had placed in the temple of his God. Cyrus, king of Persia, had them brought by Mithridash, I can't say that word, Mithridath, Mithridath, the treasurer, who counted them out to Sheshbazzar, the prince of Judah. Okay, so if you read this, if you read the book of Ezra, you see there's a big list of all the stuff. Okay, all the stuff that Nebuchadnezzar had taken from the temple in Jerusalem, and he had put it into his own temple of his God. Well, now that Babylon got defeated by the Persian Empire, now King Cyrus is giving all that stuff from the temple to go back for the Jews to take back to their temple. Okay. So here is the list of the Jewish exiles of the province who returned from their captivity. King Nebuchadnezzar had deported them to Babylon, but now they returned to Jerusalem and the other towns in Judah where they originally lived. Their leaders were Zerubbabel, Jeshua, Nehemiah, Seraiah, Realiah, Mordecai, Bilshan, Mispar, Bigvai. What a name, Bigvai. Hey, Bigvai. Bigvai and Rehum and Bana. All right, so they're going back. They're going back, guys. The leaders and all the different clans and all the people. How many people do you think are going back? What's your guess? Well, here it is. So a total of 42,360 people returned to Judah. What do you think? Is that a lot of people? Or is that a very low number? Remember we talked about the word remnant? A remnant. God always kind of has this idea that when he punishes his people, he's going to save a remnant, of people, and he's going to bring them back. So honestly, to me, this is not a very big number. I mean, if you think about a small city in Canada, like the city of Airdrie, Alberta, has 80,000. This is half the population of Airdrie. That's not very many people. Remember back under David and Solomon, the people were millions. I mean, there were millions of people living in Israel, the United Kingdom, and then it was divided, and But this is such a small number. But anyway, this number is returning to Judah. So this is exciting, guys. We're at the end of the exile. And when they arrived at the temple of the Lord in Jerusalem, some of the family leaders made voluntary offerings toward the rebuilding of God's temple on its original site. So that's important. Okay, they're going to rebuild the temple exactly where the first temple stood, on its original site, okay? And each leader gave as much as he could. The total of their gifts came to 61,000 gold coins, 6,250 pounds of silver, and 100 robes for the priests. So the priests, the Levites, the singers, the gatekeepers, the temple servants, and some of the common people settled in villages near Jerusalem. The rest of the people returned to their own towns throughout Israel. Man, imagine returning to your own town. Maybe you're a really old person now, like 80 years old, and now you're finally returning to the home of your childhood. What a moment. Man, what a moment that would be. So the construction of the temple of God began in mid-spring during the second year after they arrived in Jerusalem. The workforce was made up of everyone who had returned from exile, including Zerubbabel, son of Shealtiel, Jeshua, son of Jehozadak, and his fellow priests, and all the Levites. The Levites who were 20 years old or older were put in charge of rebuilding the Lord's temple. The workers at the temple of God were supervised by Jeshua with his sons and relatives, and Kadmiel and his sons, all descendants of Hodaviah. They were helped in this task by the Levites of the family of Henadad. Okay, so guys, they're starting work on the temple. That's awesome. Okay, so when the builders completed the foundation of the Lord's temple, the priests put on their robes and took their places to blow their trumpets, and the Levites, descendants of Asaph, clashed their cymbals to praise the Lord, just as King David had prescribed. With praise and thanks, they sang this song to the Lord. He is so good. His faithful love for Israel endures forever. Wow. They're singing. Remember King David had brought in music, had made music part of the temple kind of ritual and stuff like that. So they're singing already. That's good news, okay? Then all the people gave a great shout, praising the Lord, because the foundation of the Lord's temple had been laid. But many of the older priests, Levites, and other leaders who had seen the first temple wept aloud when they saw the new temple's foundation. The others, however, were shouting for joy. The joyful shouting and weeping mingled together in a loud noise that could be heard far in the distance. Okay, notice that the older people who had seen the first temple, they're weeping, they're crying. Why? Because this second temple is not as big it's not as grand as Solomon's temple. The foundation gets laid and they start crying because they realize, man, this is not going to be as glorious as Solomon's temple. Anyway, it's interesting, right? So, the Jewish elders continued their work, and they were greatly encouraged by the preaching of the prophets Haggai and Zechariah, son of Iddo. Zechariah, that's the guy who said, not by might, nor by power, but by my spirit, says Yahweh. Right? So, these are two of the good prophets. Remember in the last episode, we talked about the books of the prophets in the Bible? Right near the end of that, you'll see there's a book called Zechariah and one called Haggai. Okay? So the temple was finally finished as had been commanded by the God of Israel and decreed by Cyrus, Darius, and Artaxerxes, the kings of Persia. The temple was completed on March 12th during the 6th year of King Darius's reign. Wow, the temple's done, guys. It's completed. The temple of God was then dedicated with great joy by the people of Israel, the priests, the Levites, and the rest of the people who had returned from exile. During the dedication ceremony for the temple of God, 100 young bulls, 200 rams, and 400 male lambs were sacrificed, and 12 male goats were presented as a sin offering for the 12 tribes of Israel. Still recording? We're still recording, guys. So they did all their sacrifices, and then the priests and the Levites were divided into their various divisions to serve at the temple of God in Jerusalem, as prescribed in the book of Moses. Okay, so now they're kind of back in business. They're there in the land. We have the second temple now that's built. This is exciting. Guys, the exile is over, right? Now, let me ask you a question. What do you think is going to happen to this temple? The first temple, that got destroyed, right? Do you think this temple is also going to get destroyed? Or is it going to last forever? What's your prediction? If it gets destroyed, why would it be destroyed? What's the reason for it? So at this point in the story, we don't know exactly what's going to happen. But just make some predictions, okay? Think about this. So we know what kind of people the people are like. What's God going to do here with this temple? What's God's relationship with this temple going to be? Look at this verse, guys. This is during this time of the second temple. This is the last of the prophets in that list. Prophet Malachi. Look what it says. I will send my messenger who will prepare the way before me. Then suddenly the Lord you are seeking will come to his temple. The messenger of the covenant whom you desire will come, says the Lord Almighty. Interesting verse. The Lord you are seeking will suddenly come into his temple. What does that mean? I mean, how do you envision this happening? If I had been alive at that time, if I had been reading this, I would kind of wonder if Yahweh might just show up and just as a man, come and just walk into the temple one day. I'm here, guys. Hey, that's what I would be honestly thinking. Okay, given all these hints so far in the story, God coming to his temple, the Messiah being born of a virgin, riding on a donkey, and all this. I would be kind of wondering about all these passages so far, about, for example, Psalm 2, right? We've got God in heaven, but we've got the Son of God, who's the King on Zion. How's that going to work? I'd be kind of thinking about all these thoughts in my heart. And if I were to read this, I would kind of wonder if God is just going to come into his temple as a man sometime. I would kind of be expecting that if I had lived at this time. Okay, so I don't know. What do you think? If God were to come into his temple as a man, what would that be like? What would his relationship with the temple be? Would they accept him? Would they reject him? What do you think? So I don't know. Just keep some of these thoughts in mind as we move forward in the story. But guys, we had some good news this episode, right? The exile is over. The people are back in the land. The temple is rebuilt. So that's kind of a high note. The last few episodes have been kind of, it's been hard. It's been hard being in exile, but now the exile is, it's over. So guys, thank you so much for joining me in this episode. As always, I love you so much. Hope you're doing great. And as always, I'll see you over in the next episode of Mark's Bible Overview. Take care.